about it, my man?
How about it? Tuesday, January 3rd.
Podcast number
230?
230.
I just pulled that out of nowhere. I'm off to a good start this year. I am 1 for 1.
1 for 1.
Yeah, I am 1 for 1 this year. Welcome, Crushing Iron Triathlon Podcast, episode 230. If it's your first time joining us, we appreciate it. We know there are 700, 3,800, 500,000 triathlon podcasts, so we appreciate you sampling and eventually, hopefully, subscribing to our 230 episode, 2 times a week, year 3, 2019, and thanks again. We appreciate it.
We've talked about a lot of stuff.
We have talked about a lot of stuff.
It's a big archive there.
There's a large archive there for your sampling, pick and choose, lots of good content that don't let the title either sway you or deter you, because there is usually a lot of information going back and forth on many of the episodes covering, sometimes I kind of, is it the Crushing Iron podcast? Because triathlonism is definitely something that we talk about a lot, but most of the reviews we get in the feedback, it's also kind of how it fits into life. So yeah, we do talk about triathlon, we talk about it plenty, but we also talk about you and how your life relates to it, and hopefully how they can both hopefully better complement each other.
Yeah, I think it is. It's sort of about a long-term crushing iron in a way. I mean, we talk a lot about how to exist in this sport for a long time, I think.
Longevity.
Yeah. More so than, how to go crush today's workout. I mean, I don't think it's sort of, if you're kind of looking for a pump me up today kind of thing, maybe not so much all the time, but, sometimes.
Sometimes I think we do, but I just think
sure.
I think a lot of people, when they search triathlon, they search for like immediate
tips
information.
And tricks.
Yeah. Immediate top 10 ways to improve your bike split at 70.3 2019, and then they want us to like rattle off a 10-part list, and that's, I mean, if you want to do that, this is definitely not the place. You can just go subscribe to Triathlete Magazine and get, random workouts that they say are like the must-haves. Or just wait for the next active.com or ironman.com email to come through. Three best workouts to nail your best run split on June 11th this year.
That's the name of today's podcast.
Now. Yeah, exactly. Download and subscribe now. Or interviews, which we do sometimes. We just don't do them very often. But yeah, we cover a lot of content, and we spend the first 10 minutes just kind of getting in the groove, and then the middle part is the main set, and then the last little bit is the cool down. So thanks for warming up with us. We'll get to the main set shortly. How are your New Year's resolutions going?
Perfect. I'm 0 for 0.
0 for 0? That's right. I kind of felt that one coming.
Yeah.
That's good.
All right, yeah.
I'm 1 for 1.
Are you?
Well, I kind of made 2. We talked about in the other podcast about, because so many people, because I think it's just the nature of setting resolutions / goals / immediate things that they can kind of, immediate tangible things they can kind of hang their hat on. And, we talked about, instead just kind of creating patterns and doing that, because that will eventually lead you to success. But if you can create a pattern and stick to it, it at least allows some flexibility in, because most of the time people see everything in black and white. I either failed or I succeeded. There's no real gray for a lot of people. And you look at your New Year's resolutions, it's always pass or fail. But if you create a pattern that you hope leads to a result, but you stick to the pattern, those are a lot easier things to handle. So 2 of the things that I really, actually the 2 main things that I tried to focus on to start this year was leaving my phone in a different room starting at around 7:30 at night. Charging it in a different room, and So Allie and I both have put our phones in a different room, starting around 7:30. And then my other biggest thing was because what I hate, I mean, I love my job and I love connecting and I love stuff, but I am a uh, passive. I mean, I'm a slave to it because I love it. As far as work goes. And so, like, the first thing that I do every morning when I wake up was I immediately pick up my phone and I immediately check my email, or I immediately look for something work related, because I'm antsy about it. I love doing it. It's great, which is a good thing. But sometimes I dive so far into it that I forget about taking care of myself and doing things for me. And so I committed to setting the phone in a different room, and then when I get up, the first thing I'm going to do is go downstairs, grab my cup of coffee, and read. And I feel like that will set me up for success for the day. If I can at least start off with those things, doing something for myself, and reading, then I'll eventually, if I can start the day out doing something for myself, I can definitely find ways to improve. And I am 2 for 2.
So wait a minute. So you're not getting up and grabbing your phone right away?
No,
you're reading
no,
first?
it's a different. Yep, I'm leaving. I'm still leaving my phone in the bathroom, and I'm getting up. And so yesterday morning we got up and went downstairs and read. I didn't look at my phone until like 6:30, which is late for me if you guys are just tuning in. But
yeah, I was wondering why last night we were texting around 7, and I said, hey, I asked you to kind of, if you could do something real quick for me. He said, yeah, I'll be happy to get on that tomorrow.
Yeah, dropping the boundaries on you. But no, it's something that I really want to. One of my biggest thing is just not being distracted this year. I guess not so much being distracted, being either all in or all out. As I think a lot of times, I think I posted in our closed active athlete group that when people were asking about goals for the year, and I said, don't train in the gray zone and don't live in the gray zone. And I find myself living in the gray zone, always going, and being, pulled this direction or that direction, or just not being able to sit still and relax. Or not being able to go all in because I'm tired from being in that, like, living in that gray zone. So yeah, I've not looked at my phone when I woke up in the morning and grabbed my book that I'm trying to finish. I read a few of the lessons and then I get going. But I think I got kind of a good lesson from it yesterday. As the first day, Allie was trying to get up early. We're just trying to find a little more. You can't find new hours in the day, but I guess use our time a little more wisely. So alarm went off yesterday morning at 4:05 a.m. And she got up to get ready to run. And about 20 minutes later, Hayden slept like garbage. And 20 minutes later, he like pops up and he's like raring to go. At like 4:25 in the morning. And some days he's all about dad, some days he's all about mom. So yesterday morning, when it was Allie's like first day to get like rock and roll in her new routine, he like wouldn't let her out of his sight. And so she had gotten dressed, got her run clothes on, got things ready, and then had to crawl right back in bed. And it was like, how, it's like the best laid plans always end up not working out, because we just, if you have a lot of different variables in your life and you're kind of at the mercy, which if you have a toddler, you are always at the mercy. It kind of goes that way. And so it was a frustrating morning, and I was like, your first thought is, well, there goes the day. We started, but I thought, I think he didn't sleep well because he took like a 4-hour nap. He slept from like 1:30 to 5 Sunday night. Anyway,
that's my plan. Create 2 days in one.
Exactly. But yeah, he was at like 4:40. He was like, "Let's go down." And he was like, "I'm hungry. Let's go get breakfast." And so I was like, "All right, let's go downstairs." And so I'm like, "Hey, how am I gonna like fit my pattern in?" But I was like, "You know what? I'm still gonna leave my phone away." And I picked up my book and I read while he was eating. This is like 10 till 5. And he's talking to me, and he's playing with his cars and eating his cottage cheese and his dates and his Fig Newtons and whatever else he was having. And but I stuck to my pattern, and it was still a win, and it still helped me up for the day. And it was kind of cool because he was like, "Hey, Dad," he was like, because Allie and I drink coffee every morning, obviously, but he thinks everything that he drinks is called coffee too. So He's like, I'm having my coffee. I'm like, yeah, you're having your coffee. He's like, I like having coffee with you, Dad. And I was like, see, it's like, see, I mean, pulling at the heartstrings. And then 10 minutes later, he was just a normal toddler and ruining my life. But I felt like it was a good kind of, microcosm of, I stuck to my pattern. It wasn't the result that I wanted in terms of Allie and I both getting up and getting, some workouts in while he was asleep. But the pattern itself was something that we knew would be a positive. And we both got our workouts in. She came home and got hers done, but it was about the best that we could do. But again, I think when you put patterns like that in your life, or when you set goals like, I'm, going to at least make an effort to make every workout this week, or I'm going to make 6 out of 7 or whatever it is. And you make the effort to complete versus this is all pass or fail. I either do it or I don't do it. And if I don't, then I'm failing. And so it really takes a toll on people. So I think, as you set yourself up for these next coming weeks and training and even for your season, is to, map out things in maybe a black and white way, but analyze everything in the gray. Because I think so many athletes get stuck in that black and white, again, black and white being pass or fail, success, or not. And they look at it, and it can be a very hard thing for athletes to deal with depending on their emotional and mental state and how they've done in the past, if they've been committed or not committed, if they struggle with motivation or they don't struggle with motivation. And, it's to look at it in the gray, I guess, is look at the big picture. Was it still a win in that the effort was there? Yes. Was it the, requested or hoped for result? Maybe not, but the effort was there. And that's, one of the things you should always look at is the effort.
Yeah, it can be either black or white or green or red. It's like, as I keep meeting more and more people in the club and they're posting workouts and stuff like that, I don't know how you feel about it. You've been coaching for a long, long time, but like over this time of year, I feel like when I even see yellows in there, which I would equate to grays in a way, in your analogy in training peaks, green being workout completed, red workout not done or attempted, and yellow being somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I always look at that as kind of a win for people this time of year. It's like if there's something in there, that's a good thing. Back to your other thing. Did Allie get up and run then, or did she?
No, but I mean, she was in bed. She got up and just got ready for work and got things done. And then when she got home from work yesterday, she ran.
Okay, because I think those are interesting dilemmas. We talk about Stephen Pressfield and Do the Work and how resistance creeps into our lives, and he talks about resistance, and resistance is basically anything that keeps you from completing the task you wanted to do. Or and in this case, resistance was Hayden waking up early. And it's just like he talks about how the universe can conspire in strange ways, to create resistance. And I'm not saying I don't know the answer, but I think that that one is a tough question. I mean, it's like, hey, I'm running and you're taking care of Hayden right now, or you know what I mean? Like how do you get past that? I mean, is that legit resistance? That's something that you can overcome. You know what I mean? There's always these.
Well, I think
decisions that feel harsh, maybe, but you gotta stick to your guns sometimes. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It's a really, really hard balance, and I think so much of it is having confidence in yourself and in knowing. I think there's 2 different scenarios here. There's waking up and the alarm going off, and I'm like, I don't really feel like it. I'll just do it tonight.
Yeah, that's me.
Sure. And then there's I'm getting up. I went to the bathroom, got dressed, got all of her run clothes on, and then he was like having a fit. Mm-hmm. And so it was, do I go? And which it's hard for parents, and I think moms especially when they look at like taking their own time to do things. And I think it was probably for her, it was like, all right, I can either do it now and probably be distracted that he's upset, or think he'll calm down and just kind of risk it, or do I know myself well enough that I really am this committed that I am going to do it tonight? Versus what I think a lot of people do, it's, I'll just do it tonight. when you don't have any idea if you're actually going to do it tonight. You're just using that as an excuse versus a second option, which I think is the big differentiator here. Is like, if I could do it right now, I would do it, but I can't, so I am going to do it later. Versus, I could do it right now, I'm just not, and I'm just going to do it later.
Yeah.
And then it never ceases to amaze me how many times it's like, well, I didn't do it in the morning, and then I thought I could do it after work, but what was I thinking? Well, you were thinking you were too tired, or you were thinking that you didn't want to get up and work out, so you just pushed it to quote unquote after work, and after work usually means no workout. And so I think it comes down to knowing yourself and either just committing to it or doing it, or just dealing with how life comes, and that making the best decisions, and then making it day to day. Like, I don't think you can, throw yourself in that I'm just going to wake up every day no matter what and do this, because it's so stringent that you don't leave time for flexibility. So one of the things that Alan and I talked about last night was, do I want to try to get up again in the morning, or do I want to see if we can repeat what we did today because it seemed to work? And so I said, yeah, let's not have you get up at 4. Let's just set the alarm at 5 for our regularly scheduled programming. And then if I wake up early, I'll just sneak downstairs and read and do my thing. And then you can do your workout again after work. And that's what we did. I woke up at like 4:35 and went downstairs and read, and then came back upstairs around 10 after 5 when she had gotten up, but she'll run after work. So I think you have to be flexible and not it's everything's written in pencil. Like, there's so many of these. I think there was like a quote we use a lot, many podcasts ago, many moons ago, about your training plan is this living, breathing thing written in pencil. It's not like chiseled into concrete, never to be changed or altered ever again. And if you can't stick to it, you might as well just forget it. And so, like, a lot of people are, I'm going to get up at 5 o'clock every day. I'm going to get to the gym. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then they don't, but they like force themselves into like this created habit that they're not even sure fits their life perfectly. Like, life is hard enough anyway to find time to do things and around your schedule. Now, obviously, if you're single with 0 responsibilities and a very predictable job, well, you can do that. And congratulations, none of us like you. If you're most people and you've got other things going on and variables and kids and pets and crazy work schedule and whatever, you're never really free all the time. You're kind of at the mercy of life, and we all are. And so I think if you're not flexible and you're just so rigid, then you're gonna break. And it's hard for you to wrap your mind around that kind of flexibility, because for type A athletes, it's either I did it or I didn't do it. It's like, so like analogy of, trying to make things black and white and all the time is especially when an athlete looks at like an individual workout, they will do this all the time. They will look at, let's say athlete A goes into a workout and they feel like they're going to crush it, and they come out and they're just kind of okay. And it didn't meet their preconceived standards or what they had hoped for, but they got it done. And they're a little disappointed, and so they judge it as a fail. But if you look at it and you say, hey, well, you haven't had a day off in like 2 or 3 weeks. You're definitely battling some fatigue. You had 2 hard days before this. So this was a win. So it's looking in the gray to find the reality of the situation and realize that it's still a win. And then you have athlete B who goes out, runs for 40 minutes and crushes it, looks, for their own personal standards, looking at it as a black and white. They look at it as a success. But if you step back and take a look at the bigger, grayer picture, they didn't do jack crap for the 5 days before it. So again, it's like, which one is better? And so obviously, yes, it's in the eye of the beholder, but I would say that the one before it, who was maybe less thrilled with it, would be a bigger win because of the total body of work that they've put in, not just the simple action of the workout. And athletes just have a very, very, very hard time not looking at the micro. That's all they do, is they look at today. They never look back. They never look forward. It's not about the whole picture. It's about the one stroke of the brush. And that's all they're concerned about. And for athletes, it's like, you walk into a art museum and you stand like really, 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 really close, and all you see are these like random dots, and like weird, brush strokes and these weird things. And then you step back like 20 feet and you're like, holy crap, I had no idea that's what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the big picture you have to look at.
Well, the big picture is really interesting to me, because what you just said there was kind of like a 1 week example of somebody doing one workout and somebody doing whatever, a couple weeks or 5 days in a row or something. And that is definitely one thing. And another thing that always comes through my head is the thinking about micro in terms of maybe micro being 1 year of your life. You know what I mean? Like, because it's always one of those things where I think even to this point right now, where people that did late season Ironman races or something like that may still be struggling, because what happens is, and it's funny because one of the things that I've been kind of committing to is reading as well. We never even talked about that, but because I'm a big YouTube video guy, and I love it, but it's really sort of my resistance, I think, in a way. It's just so easy to sit there and watch these things, and they're usually kind of interviews, and like I don't watch like crazy videos of the cats or anything like that, but I'm usually trying to learn, but I don't think I think it's just a flood of noise really a lot of times, and it's just sort of in and out of my brain or whatever. And I've committed to, like, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to get on my bike, at least from now on. But the reading part was one thing, and I've been reading the David Goggins book. It finally came into me. It was sold out for a while. And he talked about when he got through Navy SEAL BUDS training, or actually through Navy SEAL training, he got, he graduated, and how he went from that, like, kind of feeling unbelievable, like, oh my God, I can't, I am a different person now, and I've accomplished, this is an amazing accomplishment. And how, like, he remembers kind of staring back at that going, that wore off really quick. Life was still in front of me, it wasn't. He said he kind of went backwards after that. And I think that's just a great analogy for Ironman racing, because when you do your first one, for example, like, I still remember it, that first week or two, you're just floating on air, and it's like, I can do anything. I can do anything now. I can, nothing's tough. I just did all this training, and it was so fresh in your mind, and then 3 weeks later, you're like ready to cry because you're so bummed out because, it's like, that didn't really, like, change everything, It may have shifted some paradigms in your head, but it's still a long game in the sense of, it helps you kind of change certain things, but you start to realize that you still have the same shit inside, that there's that more than anybody probably, it's like you've been working on stuff for, daily for years now.
I mean, it's like one of the first things they tell you in like the first month when you're like, when I was getting sober, they were like, this, like, they didn't say it this way, but when you talk about like 1 year as a micro, they're like, for the people who even stayed like only 30 days, they're like, this is only 30 days of your life. Like they would draw like a one little mark on like a dry erase board, and or they would draw this really, really, really long line, horizontal line on the like the length of a huge, like a dry erase board, and then they would take like one dot and like in the middle of it, and they would be like, this is your time here. And the rest of it is the rest of your life. So if you're not willing to give up this small, like, obviously, like, in the moment it seems like eternity, for in a lot of ways, but they're like, this is it. Like, it's not that long, but look at it in the from that aspect into how little it is in the part of your whole journey, and be like, and I guess in a great way to put it too is like for athletes who have been doing this for 5 or 6 years and they spent years piddling and not doing anything, and then they look back and they're like, man, like I wonder what would have been if I had taken this much control over what I'm trying to do now that I would have done it, or I could have 5 years ago. And so instead of like looking at it, oh, well, what did I miss? Look at it as, oh, I wonder what I could be 5 years from now.
Right. Yeah.
And so if so the micro again can be a good thing if you acknowledge that it's a just part of the much, much larger, hopefully longer picture and program, or however you want to look at it, and that could lead you to just long-term success that you don't even know you could achieve years and years and years down the road. But again, it's in the world we live in now, it is just so incredibly difficult for people to, I don't think it's difficult for people to wrap their mind around. I just think it's difficult for people to understand and accept the amount of patience and humility of just understanding where you are instead of trying to already arrive where you hope you can be a year from now. Because if you think about it, that's incredibly short-sighted. Mm-hmm. If you're only looking about where you can be at the end of the year, then you're being short-sighted. Because unless you're going to retire, you're basically having a start and an end to your ability to improve, or you're looking at it as this huge peak and a huge valley instead of a small trend going up and going down. Because what you end up seeing is like, would it be easier to, push your gigantic like training boulder of your all your abilities and your success, and training volume, all things wrapped into triathlon and training? Would it be easier to push that boulder up a very small incline just consistently for an infinite amount of time? Or would it be easier to take that same boulder and try to push it up this gigantic, like mountainous peak of an incline and then have it crash at the bottom, and just do that over and over and over? Because eventually what's going to happen is you're just going to lose steam. And you're going to get so tired or burnt out that you're not going to be able to keep pushing to get back to where you wanted to get to be, or you're going to crash so low because the valleys get so much deeper that you're not going to have anything left to get back up again. Mm-hmm. And so when so especially when it comes to like again, like when I talked about my own personal, goal was like to either be all in or all out, is not it's not results based in terms of something that's digital or something on a race clock. It's a daily behavior that I'm trying to change, because I believe that behaviors and patterns and things like that, those will ultimately lead to your whatever it is your best result is capable of. Because a lot of us don't even know, and all of us, frankly, and it's kind of depressing, will never know how, from an athletic standpoint or in the space of triathlon and training and performance and PR, stuff like that. A lot of them, after I say 90% of people, will just never know.
We'll never know.
Because they'll never know, because they will have never done enough to get there. Something will happen or get in the way, or they'll get in their own way. It's just never going to happen. So, but if you can change your patterns and your behaviors, and sometimes just like simple things like your thoughts, and those will create the opportunities to be able to perform and be consistent and stay motivated, and that will lead you to be more available to train and race and do things. So maybe one day you will get as close as you can get, versus just kind of getting halfway there. Yeah. And on the way and on the road there, beating yourself up because you've made everything pass or fail.
It's all about learning and remembering, really. And I mean, that's another reason I'm a big advocate of writing a lot, and whether it's, commenting on your workouts in detail and training peaks, or just journaling or something like that. Because I mean, what's the worst thing? One of the worst things for me is like when I'm doing something mid-season and then I kind of go, why didn't I just do that? Or why didn't I just stay with what it's like, why am I doing this again? Or
Mm-hmm.
That repeat, like you're saying, climbing back up the mountain.
Yep.
Instead of just slowly keeping going all the time. And that is one of the biggest frustrators for me is like, I should have learned that lesson. And I know that's a common refrain, I think, with a lot of people, is that we just refuse to learn things that are going to matter again. And it's sort of because you do something. And, Ironman could be a good example. You finished Ironman. Oh, I know how to do it. No, there's a lot of things left to learn about approaching something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like you just did it and now you know how to do it. You know what I mean? There's so many nuances that are floating around in this sport that, you read that all the time. It's like, well, again, I go back to that one, I forgot the guy's name, the pro that said he still hasn't figured out the Ironman run. He's a professional.
Yeah, Tim Reed. Yep.
Yeah, Tim Reed. So there's just not glamour in learning little things, or doing little things over and over and being, that pattern that you're talking about. I think that how do we find that sort of spark to continue on that kind of road when you're doing the little things? Like, how are you going to continue your spark to just keep reading? Because you're at some point, obviously that's a good thing for you, I think. It's going to be hard to argue that getting up and reading to start your day, reading something good that's fueling your mind, it's kind of hard to argue that that's a bad thing. But how do you quantify it? You know what I mean? Or I think that's a hard thing for a lot of people to do, we always talk about, well, what good is this 30-minute run doing me or whatever? It is, but sometimes the fireworks aren't going off about that.
Well, I think it's a great point. I think the mechanisms will always change because and I've got a lot of books on tap. And the reason I've been kind of collecting some is I saw somebody say, like, no matter, even if you have time to read it, always buy a book that looks good to you, because the greatest books you have are the ones you haven't read. Because they're always there for you to pull and read from, and instead of just like, I don't have a book to read, so it's easier to not have one. But I think the mechanism of the purpose will always change in that, like when I'm done with this book, what if the next book doesn't really spark it? But I think I guess the purpose behind what is now reading for me is the first thing that I want to do when I wake up is I want to do something for me. I want to fill myself up in a positive way that's just for me, not immediately going to my phone or hopping on Training Peaks and immediately making my day all about everybody else from the time I have my first breath. And so I think that if it's not reading, maybe it's I sneak up early and go get in a 30-minute run before I look at my phone, before I start work, before I do anything else, and take something for me. Because I think so much like of the time we spend now is we either are doing things for other people and we're working, or we are wasting time on social media consuming other people's whatever. And for me, I think it was just a behavioral thing and a choice in saying, hey, I'm important. My life's important too. I have things that I want to be able to accomplish and I want to do, and my mindset and my mentality and my emotions are important. So right now, that solution for me of choice is reading, and then maybe in a few months it'll be meditating, and then maybe in the next phase maybe writing. So I think those are changed. I think it's okay. Those will change. I think it's okay to be flexible in those as well. But I think that the underlying purpose is, for me, is starting my day off doing something for me, where I can't, as best I can. And will it be like some unending streak? Probably not. Something else will happen. Circumstances might make it impossible. It's just you just have to do the best you can. But I think it's that purpose of, and I also like it. I went back to some of the best times in my life when I've been the strictest and the most committed even with all the same variables and some even worse variables, one of the first things I always did was that time alone. And I think that's for me, it's a great way to start the day. So yeah, but I think it's understanding and not. I think it's also not being foolish in that it's going to be a streak that goes on forever. Because right now everybody is very excited that they've been able to do something for 48 hours. Or however,
right.
Whatever day it is in January. But so I just think it's important to also be realistic in knowing that it's going to get difficult and harder and it might change. That doesn't make you a failure. It just makes it part of life. But I think it's how you're able to adapt to the streak ending or a blip on the radar of what you're trying to accomplish, if it's a behavior or a pattern, as it's about how you adjust to it and how the mindset, because if you can keep anything going for even a remote period of time, it's going to translate to different areas of your life. I think there's probably a direct correlation if you have somebody that's cutting out specific foods and going on like a quote unquote diet, and they're also committed to training every day. If they're doing both of those, or if they're able to do one perfectly, I bet they're able to do the other one really, really good. But if one breaks, then how does that affect the other ones? Like a real common one is I was really crushing my diet, crushing my workouts, and then I went out last night and I had too many margaritas and I had some Mexican, and I just don't feel like working out today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always the avalanche approach. Everything fails. You pull the plug on one thing, and everything else falls apart. It's just like a total domino effect. Instead of it was one little blip on this end, but I don't have to let it seep into every other part of my life and all the things that I'm doing. And again, starting over next Monday, so it's just, I think it's understanding. It's also understanding, I think, the underlying reason behind why you're actually doing it. And that purpose alone, I think, can fuel you through some of the more difficult times in terms of goals or resolutions or habits or behaviors. If you know that it's going to either negatively or positively affect your whole day or other areas of your life, I think you're more apt to address it and not let that happen versus, maybe just being a little bit naive to the fact that you're in a spot where if one thing goes, more than likely the rest is going to go. So if you find yourself eating gummy bears in your bed alone at night at 10 p.m., the next day's probably not going to go very well.
Yeah. Well, but we also, there's a weird sensation or weird tendency for us to look for that opportunity to sabotage something. I think sometimes, how, and then it makes that excuse a little bit easier. I'm speaking firsthand on that. I think it's like, I'm going to go out and have a big burrito tonight because I'm feeling empty. I need to fill some kind of void, and then that sort of parlays into the next morning. But I'm curious about this morning reading ritual you got going there. Have you changed? Are you a different person? No, I'm kidding.
New year, new me, man. I'm totally different.
Totally different, man. I can tell. There's something different about you, man.
When we get lunch tomorrow, man, I'm going to walk in and you'll be like, dude, there's this glow about you. I can tell this is your year. You're going to take it by the balls and make it yours.
I'll be like, quit looking through me, man. Quit looking right through me. You're seeing into my soul.
Yeah, no, it's but it's been challenging.
No, but I think there's a good thing there because one of the, for me, it's sort of that thing about getting the phone right away, right? I mean, that's just such a potential.
I hate it.
It's so, like, depending, like, say you know how you wake up and you kind of need a little time. Usually, most people need a few minutes, or for me, it might be an hour to wake up. Mm-hmm. And if you're gonna wake up and put what randomly could be showing up on your phone in your mind, you're playing with fire, man. Mm-hmm. And that could really set the day in the wrong way. But if you get up and go down and read a book that you know is giving you fuel, or if you get up and you go for a short little jog, like I did this morning, but you go like without just maybe a couple miles, whatever, and just go with the blood that has been cleaning and cleansing and resting overnight, and let that kind of get flowing through you, the pure stuff, without like amping in a bunch of electrolyte mix and sugars or whatever else. If you just kind of go for a nice easy jog and get the blood flowing, it's like, how much different could that be setting you up? You know what I mean? That could be that could be the difference between 1 cup of coffee and 6.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like that's how I think of stuff like that. But the reading, I think, is the same kind of thing. It's like you're priming your pump with some good fuel right out of the gate, and that's sort of letting your body adjust naturally and get stabilized or something before you get into that phone, and then you can handle all that a little bit easier, probably.
Yep.
Or whatever. So those are
It's a challenge, but I think again, like that's why I didn't I haven't made any like really tangible, like I want to lose 5 pounds or I want to go sub this in any kind of a goal. I didn't do any of it. I guess like one of the perfect example of how you just can't control life is Allie and I. My mom came over here on New Year's Day to babysit so we could go out and have some alone time, and so we obviously went out and got crazy on New Year's Day. Went to Starbucks to read and make some personal goals, some relationship goals, and some parenting goals. And so we went to the Starbucks close to our house that I think I've only been to once in like 3 years. And no lie, I had just gotten done being like, I want to make sure I'm taking more time for myself and not making it all about work, putting priorities and boundaries and all that kind of stuff. No shit. 30 seconds later, this couple walks in that I haven't seen in probably, 5 or 6 months. Local triathletes pull up, coffee down. Hey, mind if we join you?
Oh, man.
I'm like, of course you can. Your keys are already on the table. And Paul and Karen Putnam, if you're listening, love you guys. But it was just like, we kind of looked at each other like, this is our life. You just can't control it as much as you want to. You just can't control it. But it's, and again, it doesn't have to make, I think the biggest thing is like, as much as you want a positive to be a trend, the same doesn't have to be for like the negative, because so many times we turn like a negative or a misstep or something, like that doesn't go well. We allow that to create a trend. Oh, that's just how it's gonna be. Oh, that's not how my year is gonna go. When it's like, dude, we're on like day 3. Like let's not be a prisoner of the moment in all things, everything, all the time. The world isn't burning. The world isn't crashing. It's like this isn't terrible, nor is it the greatest thing ever. It's just a total sense of awareness that you have to have, and you have to constantly and consistently work on to know that, sorry, your toast isn't burnt, and your toast might be burnt, but it's not gonna make the whole day terrible, and you're also not the greatest thing since sliced bread. Sorry to break it to you. You just got to keep working. But we get so far into, dude, I'm all in. I'm not breaking. There is no way I'm gonna stick to this diet. I'm gonna do it for 30 days. I'm not gonna break. Watch me. Facebook 24/7. Here I go, clean eating. # gluten free. # living on oxygen only. And then 6 days later, you go to the movies by yourself, and you have like 3 pounds of popcorn. You're like, starting over, day 1. And like, just understand that you're gonna. Things are going to be difficult. Things are going to, be a struggle. And I understand that there's power in vocalizing goals. There is power in that. I think it was around this time last year I posted something on our Closed Crushing Iron Facebook page about an article that was more about having like an anonymous race and how people were more apt to do better in it. But I also I was reading some excerpts from, I think there's an Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary about being Mr. Universe or something, and he was talking about the greatest thing that he ever did was make a picture so vivid of what he wanted to achieve that it drove him. It wasn't a medal. It wasn't bench pressing this or not eating this or getting down to this weight. It was picturing himself on top of the stage winning Mr. Universe. And he said, I could visualize it perfectly. And it was so ingrained in my head that that's all I needed to think about was this. And yes, was it winning this? Sure. Was it the ultimate goal? Absolutely. But I think sometimes looking at that big picture, like a lot of people are, I'm gonna train for this many hours a week. I'm not gonna fail. I'm not gonna get hurt. I'm not gonna get sick. I'm gonna stick to my training this year. I'm not gonna miss any days. I'm gonna crush every workout, and I'm gonna go, sub 11 hours at, Ironman Florida. And they put all these like benchmarks and points along the way they need to hit. And pass or fails more than likely, because if they do their first 70.3 and they end up finishing in like 6.5 hours, things probably aren't going to trend in very well, and they might reshape it. But if you visualize what it's going to be like, what you're going to look like, how you're going to feel when you cross a finish line with X amount of time, I think you can always have that, and you can always have that feeling and that vision, even in the worst of times, because that it's something that's for the good, that's going to put you somewhere in a better spot. And I think it can make those days where you don't see the point or you don't feel like doing it a little more valuable, because you have that vision of whatever it is you want to accomplish. Because everybody's got this one huge, gigantic thing they want to accomplish, for the year. Most people do. And sometimes it gets hard along the way to not take time off or to be lazy, because you can just do it again tomorrow, and the biggest thing is like, you don't know if you can do it again tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But it's those small little things that I think that it's about really, really arming yourself and filling up your toolbox with all the tools that you need to be able to have a successful year. And so many of the things that people arm themselves or put in their toolbox are not things that are going to lend themselves to being able to have a happy and healthy and successful year.
Yeah.
It's all about today,
Mm-hmm.
And today is important, but it's about winning today, not, doing the things that are necessary and the basics, which is also winning, but it's that be it yesterday, mentality that people live in success or failure, when most oftentimes the greatest success you can have is just putting your shoes on or hopping on the bike or getting in the pool. Like that's the win, is just to do it. Because once you get into it, most people are going to finish it, but just get in the groove and do it and take that mentality and finish it.
Mm-hmm. It's funny how things crystallize sometimes. As you were saying that, I was thinking about, because I think several of our athletes are on a, run for X amount of days thing or whatever. That's been kind of floating around our closed group in Facebook, is running every day for blah, 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 or whatever. And I always used to talk about swimming in that regard when I was training for Louisville. It was going to be my first Ironman in a non-wetsuit situation, and it kind of intimidated me. And so what I did was I just started swimming, and I swam every day for 2.5 weeks or something leading up to every day I was down there. It wasn't like mammoth swims or anything like that, but and just like the people that are doing running every day, what that does is it just creates that habit. You know what I mean? Like you're saying, the goal can be one thing, and if you have the vision of what you're looking at, that stuff kind of takes care of itself on the way if you just keep showing up. And like you were just saying, sometimes the best thing is just to get your shoes on and go run or get to the pool or whatever it is. And I think there's some huge lesson there, because the one thing about going to the pool every day for me, it just took the pool, or, it just made it a habit. It wasn't, because sometimes you can think, I got to go to the pool. And it was just sort of like I was just going to the pool. And that mental switch, sort of that, I guess hardening of the brain or callousing or whatever, to the point where swimming was just something I was doing rather than some kind of big, deal that was, hold me back or whatever. I mean, it's just it's just like building that habit. So, I mean, that's another microcosm, because I haven't obviously done that since. I mean, swimming every day or anything like that. But I'm just saying that once you start doing all that sort of stuff, it becomes easy. The easier. And that's the stuff that I was saying earlier. Is like, why do I always stop doing these sort of things? It's like, and then ultimately that comes back to why do I have to reinvent the wheel, or why can't I just stay with the training plan, And then that becomes a habit. And you have people that are green all the time and they just do their things, and they have beaten that challenge, of that's just something they do. They get up and they do it. They don't think about it as much. And I think that's sometimes where we get into the overthinking, and something's, you wake up and something's tweaked and you're like, I don't know if this is the right day to start doing this or whatever. Just do it.
Yep.
And it helps you relax, You what?
It's such I read, it was in the book I was reading, it said 99% healthy doesn't make you 100% injured.
Oh, that's good.
And I was like, dude, that is so on. Because people all the time will have these nagging, issues or whatever. And it's like, I don't know what I should do. And it's just like a lot of time in the year, like if you're putting in like a whole lot of work, like you're probably never going to feel 100% healthy and super super fresh. There's always probably going to be something teetering on the line, especially if you're an athlete at a very high level. Putting in a lot of hours, and just because, listen, you can't know the ends of your body and what it can take. You just can't until you get there. And hopefully you don't ever want to get there by using, a sledgehammer. Hopefully you want to get there by using maybe like a small ice pick or something. Like, so if you can see a small crack before you see a break. You know what I mean? So like you just never can know, because it's just hard if you've never been there. And so many people throw the reins off, and with these little things, and a lot of times it's just about constantly moving, or choosing, or if you can't run, then go swim. If you can't bike, then go run. If you can't swim, do more biking. Instead of just throwing in the towel on everything. And yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's such an indictment on a person's character if they've never followed through with anything, or some things, or a lot of things. I think it's more searching needs to be done to figure out not so much why they failed, but why it wasn't important enough to them to succeed. And I think if you frame it that way, it creates so much more opportunity for learning and growth than you just can't do it. Why are you even committing to this? Because you just can't commit. See, last year you said you do X, Y, and Z. Nobody's perfect at committing. If you're listening to this podcast, you made resolutions last year, and I bet you every single person on this podcast failed at meeting all of them. So none of us are perfect. So, nobody's going to meet all of them. But it doesn't make you terrible at commitment, or terrible at being motivated, or you're always somebody that's going to fall short, you're always somebody that's going to fail. It's maybe those just didn't mean enough to you to matter. And we get lost so many times. It's so frustrating to watch, like, athletes and friends, and I'm feeling like it just doesn't mean enough to you to matter. So why are you beating yourself up about it? Find something that means a lot, and then it'll matter enough to where you won't want to quit. Find that, and stop just inserting these little things in your life to pretend, because I think people struggle with meaning, or struggle with things that are truly, honestly meaningful, in their life. And so they just insert things that kind of, they insert things in life to kind of hold pattern to, hold a spot for something that maybe might down the road it might mean something, but then it doesn't. And then you end up wasting your time on something that doesn't matter, and because it doesn't mean enough to you. So just find something that means enough to you, and even if it seems trivial to everybody else, But if you know it means something to you because you see it as a part of the greater good or your greater, the greater version of you, whatever it is, then you'll be more apt to stick to it versus just throwing in some arbitrary, well, I got to lose weight or I got to do this or I got to do that. Like, first of all, you don't. And that's why so many people quit, because you don't have to do really anything. Besides die and pay taxes, you don't have to do anything. But so many people pick these just arbitrary things because it's just become part of the cycle of the norm to hop on a challenge and do this and do that and do this and do that, or sign up for an Ironman because I've done it every single year of my life. I don't know what's going to be like to not do it. Well, maybe look at your past few results and feel like why you haven't really improved as much as you could. Like, is it there for a reason, or is there just because? Is it just a placeholder? Mm-hmm. And so, like when you're looking at, because listen, there is no deadline for goals or habit or performer behavior changing patterns. You can do that today. January 3rd is not like there's not like an IRS deadline in April. It's just like you can do it today. You don't have you can erase all your goals and start over again if you want. But just find ones that mean something to you and that really truly are meaningful to you, and only you, because you're the only person that's gonna be able to stick with them. And then go for it, and don't minimize them and think they aren't big enough, or like if they're important to you and you think they're going to have a positive impact on your life, then I guarantee you it's going to impact your life greater than a person who gives up sugar for 5 days, and then crashes on a Snickers binge.
Yeah.
So just choose wisely and choose with some purpose. Yeah. And I think you'll be more apt to stick with it.
Yeah. And I just want to finish up because it's a perfect thing that as I'm reading this David Goggins book, and again, he's a Navy SEAL, and he was talking about in Hell Week how there's one question that just runs through all their minds the whole time, and it is, why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. Because they, at any time, they can walk right out of there. They're not, it's not mandatory. The rule is that if you want to walk away from anything, you can just walk up and ring the bell, put your helmet down, and you're done with no penalty whatsoever.
Yep.
So the big question that they kind of just keep forcing into your head is, you're asking yourself, why? Why am I? You're in. He said they're spending 2 hours walking into freezing cold water, then rolling around in the sand, and then never warming up, shaking up and down, their teeth chattering for, hours on end, all night with no sleep ahead, and they know they've got 5 days of this ahead of them. They don't know what's next. They don't nothing. So the question they keep saying is, why? Why am I here? Mm-hmm. I could be home in bed with my wife, Yeah. I could be hanging out. There's a million other things that would seem really much better than this, but why? So, I think he said something like 25 or 30% of the people that start that week make it through their training, and most of them just walk out, and they don't. And he claims it's because they don't know why they're there, what really matters to them, and he, and that question does not go away that whole time, It's
right.
like you have to keep answering it, and you have to have a firm answer. So that's an extreme, and I realize that very few people are going to ever be as tough or hard as David Goggins and those kind of guys, but there's lessons in there that can help us, get to the next level in the things that we're trying to do. And it just really resonates. And we've talked about Find Your Why a lot.
Yep.
And I think that question is worth a deep search. So many times it's sort of like a question that pops up on the survey or whatever, and it's sort of like, right. Oh, well, I just, I love my kids or whatever. And then it's like, and I do the same thing. It's sort of like, I just want to get better or whatever the question is or the answer. It comes in your head first. But I think it's worth a deep search, a deep dive into what's driving you, because it's a good answer to have in a lot of tough times of training in this sport.
I like that.
Good, man.
The unending search. It's always going to change. I think it's always changing.
Yeah, because you should learn, along the way, and then then you need maybe a new version of that why or something.
Well, it's just I think your why again is always changing. Like I think so many people get stuck in like feeling like, oh well, my why isn't the same, so I've lost it. Mm-hmm. No, your why can be whatever you want, and it's going to change all the time. It's just going to, because life changes and you change. Like, what was important to me 3 years ago isn't even close to as important to me right now.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I lost my why. It just means that it changes. I mean, like, think of the person that goes from having their why and then a year and a half later they're married and they have a kid on the way. Guess what? Why's changed. Life's changed. You've changed. Everything changes. Your perception of the world changes. It's just always changing. And so when you look at something like it's so core of like, why is it important to you? It's like, why is it so important to you right now? Mm-hmm. And then just be unwavering in it and be, just concreted in knowing that right now that I've got it, instead of just, because it doesn't have to be like some, deep down world changing, I'm going to, beat world hunger and create world peace. That's my why.
No, that's a bad why.
That's a bad why. Good luck. But it just doesn't have to be that deep. It doesn't have to be like this gigantic motivational why for everybody else. It just has to be a why that motivates you. Mm-hmm. And so many times we get wrapped up on, well, that's just not good enough. So-and-so's why is so much greater than mine. Like, says who? Like it's, her, and guess what? Your Wi-Fi doesn't mean jack crap to somebody else.
Your Wi-Fi?
Your Wi-Fi.
Your Wi-Fi like, don't mean crap to me, man.
Crap to me, man.
I got my own Wi-Fi.
But it's just fun. It's be okay it, because I think just always answering questions, and again, that goes back to like not, because whys don't have to be black and white either. They can always trend, and you can rethink them into a gray. Your why for January through March might be one thing, and then all of a sudden things change in life. You're like, yeah, it's not so much that you've lost your why; it's that you're just not recognizing that it's changed.
Yeah,
what it truly is. Mm-hmm. Instead of, because it's just going to change. It's always going to change, and every single person who's done one Ironman struggles.
I know, that's what I was just going to say. Your why is the medal. I want to say I'm an Ironman. I want to say I did it. And the minute you get out of that red carpet, you got to come up with something new, bro, or you're going to get down.
You're never going to have it again. Ever. You're never, ever, 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 ever going to get that feeling back again. Ever. Sorry. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there is never going to be that feeling. Not because your other ones aren't going to be great, but because your focus and your why for that race was so grand, and you made your life so much about it, that if you don't do that again, you're not going to get that same feeling. And it's not that you can't, it's just that most people won't. They won't make it about something different, or they won't recognize it for what it really is. They won't make it, a part of their life and a part of their journey and their lifestyle and just getting better. And then they will change. They will get it, because you will achieve more and do more things. But you get out what you put in. And so many people put so much more into their freshman year, and then that's why you always see the sophomore slump.
The band's first record.
Yeah, nothing's changed, man. It's just a year older. But it's like, it's a totally different world. It's your world. You just made it different, because, it just didn't mean enough. It wasn't first time. There is a distinct difference. Having coached so many athletes that have done their first, and then ones that have done 2, 3, 4, 8, 9. There are very, very, very distinct differences in athletes with their first one and then their second one. And the second one is almost always the biggest struggle. Mm-hmm. Because they come off such a high that you just can't fake it. The second one is you can't fake it anymore, because it's gone. That first one is gone. You're not going to get that exact feeling back. So if you don't adjust the way that you think, or your approach, or looking at things as a process, or a different why and understanding that it's going to change, you're just not going to get it back. And that's why people struggle so much, is they fail to do that, and they go grasping at straws to grasp that first time feeling. When the first time feeling has nothing to do with the first time Ironman. It's the first time a lot of these people have actually approached something with such rigorous commitment and unwavering motivation that they were able to achieve something. So get that back, and then you get the same feeling back. It wasn't the first time race. It was the first time you probably, or not maybe ever, but in a long time.
Sure.
I mean, you can attest to that.
Yeah.
As much as anybody. I mean, you had totally turned your life around and done something that you never thought you could do, and you were as committed and focused as you had been in a long time on anything. And that's why it felt like that. It's the culmination of what you did, not what was just done. And that's why it's so difficult to get back, because it's hard, and it's hard to replicate because you try to duplicate the wrong things.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel like that's motivated by fear of failure, that first one, in a large way. And then, it's like there's lessons we learn from like guys like, like how did Michael Jordan, the difference between Michael Jordan and somebody that just kind of like goes through their NBA career sort of in the middle. It's like, what's the difference there? Besides getting paid millions of dollars just to kind of go out and play hoops. But, what drives somebody like that? Or, why does, and I think ultimately it's not about the trophy, it's something else, and I think that's the key, is like the first time they put that Ironman medal on your neck, it's a big deal. But after that, you're just like, okay, I've got one of these.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I can get it back. I can get that motivation back.
Yeah.
I can.
A deep search for your why. That's your homework.
Get back to us.
Ooh. Okay. All right, man.
All right. We'll catch you
gonna go read?
Monday. No, I got work to do.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Hey, I already read some, and I've already done a bike ride today. So I got work to do, training plans to do, and to get ready for our really in-depth lunch meeting tomorrow.
Yes, lunch it is tomorrow.
Same spot.
Same spot. If you're in Nashville, we'll be around having lunch. Maybe you'll find us.
Yeah, that's right. We're at the same spot every time.
Okay.
If you want any more information on all the other things we do, training packages, our club membership, the videos, swim analysis, training camps, you can go to crushingiron.com. It's all there in a very, very nice, neat, and transparent layout. And if you have any specific questions for Mike, you can email him directly, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you have any questions for me, you can get to me directly at c26coach@gmail.com.
Sounds good, Coach.
All right, dude. Talk to you later.
All right, buddy. Bye.